Everyone thinks they understand millennials. They're the avocado toast generation. They killed chain restaurants. They're obsessed with experiences. They can't buy houses, and somehow that's also their fault. They're sensitive, they're entitled, they got trophies just for showing up. That's the story, right? Here's what nobody talks about. Millennials, born roughly between 1981 and 1996, grew up during one of the most psychologically destabilizing periods in modern history. And the traits that get made fun of, they're not weaknesses, they're survival responses. Coded into a generation that was told over and over again that they were special, and then watched that promise collapse in real time. This is the psychology of millennials, and it's a lot more complicated than a brunch meme. Picture this. It's 1995. You're 9 years old. Your teacher is asking what you want to be when you grow up. And every adult in the room, your parents, your teachers, the TV, the movies, is telling you the same thing. You can be anything you want. You're special. Work hard, go to college, and life will reward you. And you believed it. Why wouldn't you? Millennials were the most parented generation in American history. Helicopter parents, structured playdates, car seats and helmets, and constant supervision. A 2014 study in the Journal of Child Psychology found that parental involvement in children's lives had nearly doubled since the 1970s. For the first time, children were being raised with the explicit message that they mattered, deeply and individually. And that's not a bad thing, but it created a very specific psychological expectation that the world would meet you where you were, that your uniqueness was a currency, that effort would be recognized and rewarded. And then, the world did not do that.
The oldest millennials graduated college right into the dot-com bust. The youngest graduated right into 2008, the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression. And they walked into it holding $30,000, $50,000, sometimes $100,000 in student loan debt. Debt they took on because every adult told them college was the only path to a good life. Think about what that does to a brain still developing. You followed the rules exactly. You did everything right. And the floor fell out anyway. Psychologists call this a violation of contingency expectation, the experience of doing what you're supposed to do and not getting what you were promised. Research published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology shows that repeated violations of contingency expectations don't just cause disappointment, they alter how the brain processes future rewards. The brain starts to distrust positive outcomes before they even arrive. This is why so many millennials struggle with something that looks from the outside like an inability to commit to jobs, to cities, to relationships. It's not flakiness. It's a deep, learned wariness of investing in something that might disappear. When the thing you were promised doesn't arrive, you stop fully believing in the next promise. And then there's the thing nobody warned them about, the internet. Millennials were the first generation to grow up with social media during their formative years. MySpace, Facebook, then Instagram. They were handed a tool that turned their social world into a permanent scoreboard. And nobody told them what that would do to their sense of self.
Research from the American Psychological Association has consistently found that millennials report significantly higher rates of stress and anxiety than older generations. But here's the part that gets overlooked. It's not just the comparison to others online that drives this, it's the visibility of their own lives. For every other generation, you could fail quietly. You could have a bad year, break up with someone, get fired, and most people in your world would never know. Millennials grew up in a world where your life was performed publicly, in real time, to an audience that never stops watching. That creates a very particular kind of psychological pressure, the need to curate a version of yourself that is always doing okay. Psychologists call this self-presentation anxiety, and it doesn't just affect how you look to others, it starts to affect how you feel about yourself when nobody is looking. You begin to measure your own life against the highlight reel of everyone around you, and your highlight reel never quite feels like enough. This is where the hustle culture obsession comes from. Not ambition, fear. Fear that if you stop moving, stop producing, stop optimizing, someone will see that you're not doing as well as your feed suggests. Here's the fascinating paradox at the core of millennial psychology.
They are simultaneously the most idealistic and the most cynical generation alive right now. They still believe deeply in causes, in changing the world, in businesses having a conscience, in work having meaning. Study after study shows millennials are more likely to take a pay cut to work for a company whose values align with theirs, more likely to volunteer, more likely to demand accountability from institutions. That idealism didn't die, but they also trust almost nothing.
They watched the government fail during Katrina. They came of age during the War on Terror, glued to news channels showing a world that seemed to be unraveling. They saw Wall Street crash the global economy and then watched the same banks get bailed out, while their generation paid off loans for degrees that no longer guaranteed anything. So you have a generation that desperately wants things to be better and deeply expects that they won't be. That tension isn't weakness. It's what happens when you care profoundly about something and have been burned enough times to stop being naive about it. Researchers describe this as disillusioned idealism, a state where the drive to improve things coexists with low faith in existing systems to actually do it. It's why millennials don't just want good products. They want to feel like the brand isn't lying to them. It's why they're drawn to authenticity, real, messy, unfiltered, in a way older generations sometimes can't understand. Because they grew up in a world that polished everything, and they learned to see through the polish. But here's what that journey built. A generation that is extraordinarily adaptable, because they had to be. They've watched entire industries disappear and reinvent themselves. They've reskilled, pivoted, side hustled, freelanced, and built careers out of roles that didn't exist when they were children. The gig economy wasn't something that happened to millennials. In many ways, they invented it, out of necessity. They developed an emotional intelligence that is genuinely rare. Growing up in a world that was becoming more connected, more global, and more visible than any previous generation experienced, they learned, often painfully, how to navigate complexity, nuance, and difference. They are less likely to think in absolutes, more likely to hold multiple perspectives at once, more likely to say, "I don't know," rather than pretend to have an answer. And they are fiercely, quietly loyal to the people who actually show up for them. Not institutions, not employers, not systems. People. Because people were what turned out to be reliable when everything else wasn't.
They didn't get a stable world. They got a world that kept changing the rules. And they got good at playing a game where the rules change. That's not a small thing. That might be exactly the kind of skill the world needs right now. The thing about millennials is that they grew up being told they were special, discovered that the world didn't particularly care, and then had to figure out, in real time, in public, online, who they actually were when the promise turned out to be a little more complicated than advertised. That's not entitlement. That's disorientation. And there's a difference. They're the generation that had to grow up twice. Once when they were children, and again when the world they were promised turned out not to exist. That second growing up is harder. It's lonelier, and it leaves a different kind of scar. But scars, as it turns out, make people more honest, more empathetic, more real, less willing to pretend that things are fine when they aren't. And that might be the most millennial thing of all, the refusal to fake it, even when it would be easier. If this hits something for you, share it with someone it might hit too. And if you want more of these deep dives into the psychology behind the generations we think we already understand, subscribe. There's a lot more to get into.